culture, language, religion, etc. But we all kind of had the same underlying values about how we can make the world a better place to be in. So yeah, it was really special talking about the conflict in Sudan with someone from Sudan, or learning about the peace and justice work in Northern Ireland from someone who is part of that work. I learned a lot by being there. My particular course of study was in international peace education. Now, peace education is kind of an umbrella term to talk about a lot of different kinds of education. Education for sustainable development, education for human rights, conflict resolution, mediation, nonviolent communication. All of these things kind of fall under the umbrella of peace education. And basically, peace education hopes to equip people with the skills, knowledge, and behavior to make their world a more peaceful place. So what I learned there was tremendous, but I was also able to engage in a lot of kind of extracurricular activities. So I worked with Peace Jam. You might have heard of that. That started here in Colorado, but now it's an international organization. I taught in some prisons, in local prisons in Costa Rica. I did some disaster relief with the earthquake they had down there. But probably one of my richest experiences was an internship I got with UNHCR, which is the UN agency that handles all things to do with refugees. So while there, I learned a lot about refugee resettlement, local integration projects, microfinances, as well as kind of how the whole UN system works. So I was busy for a whole year, and then I came back to Denver, and I have to tell you the transition was a little tough. So I kind of stayed home, and I did a lot of writing when I came back. I finished my thesis, and my thesis advisor invited me to help her write a textbook. So I spent about 6 months working on a workbook for the Peace Operations Training Institute. That's an institute that trains blue helmets basically in Africa and Asia. I rewrote a workbook about multicultural issues. Then the workbook was such a success, we decided to change it into an online course. So it's an online course that we offered last spring through UPeace called Contemporary Leadership, Cultures, and Diversity, about intercultural communication. So I was doing all these things and I was really enjoying it, but I needed a full-time job. So I started researching some organizations here in Denver, and I found an organization that all of you Rotarians here at this club probably know quite well, Denver Kids, Inc. I was attracted to Denver Kids for a lot of reasons, but actually one of the reasons was their involvement, their long-term 60-year involvement with the Rotary Club. I had been out learning about all these amazing projects that Rotary was doing both locally and abroad, and I thought, wow, if an organization has been connected to Rotary for 63 years, it's probably a pretty good organization to work for. So I interviewed with them, and I was really interested in the educational counselor position, but I still wanted to use kind of all that international experience and that experience I'd had with refugees in my current job. So I was pretty lucky to find out that the area they needed an educational counselor in was Denver Southeast, which is the area that DPS funnels all the resettled refugees students into. So I'm currently in 13 schools, and I have 55 students on my caseload, about 35 of which are resettled refugees. And it's just tremendous because I'm able to learn everything, use everything I learned in my master's, such as conflict resolution, mediation, etc., to now come back to Denver and enrich my local community. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you Rotarians for supporting the Rotary Foundation and the Ambassadorial Scholarship, because it allowed me to go bring all those skills back here to Denver and to make Denver a more peaceful place. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Next is Dave Talbot, but why he's coming up, you know that the Rotary Foundation has spent $517 million on ambassadorial scholars since it was first instituted, an amazing amount of money. To interview these students, I've been privileged to interview these students, is an amazing experience. They're just unbelievably accomplished. The bar was set much lower for my two sons. I said I want 2 college degrees and no felonies, and I did it. Dave?
You know, sorry about that. Can you hear me? Let's try this. Testing, testing. I look out here and I see a room full of heroes. All of you people are in Rotary. I salute you. What you're doing to end polio in this world is absolutely astonishing. the power and the resource that you pour into this effort rocks my world. And you have saved hundreds and thousands, I'm still not far enough away, hundreds and thousands of children's lives across this world. And for me, it is a very emotional thing, because in 1955, I woke up one morning when I was 2.5 years old, and I couldn't move. Now, can you imagine a 2.5-year-old that can't move? My parents were scared to death, because they knew what it probably was. And they took me down to Children's Hospital here in Denver, where they got the bad news that I had infantile paralysis, polio. And the diagnosis was not good. They thought I was going to die. And from that, because I had excellent care in the United States, it took me several years to get rid of the braces and the wheelchair and all of those things. And I got rid of crutches for about 45 years, and I went after it. Because they told me, you can't do physical things. You'll never be able, well, first they said I'd never walk again. And so I walked. And then I ran, and then I was a linebacker in football, and I was an outward bound and climbed mountains and bicycled across Europe 4 times. So just because you see me with crutches today, well, it's an indication that I now am in the world of post-polio syndrome. But you know, when I was a kid growing up and they said, you know, you're not going to be able to do anything physical, I really went for it. And if they'd only told me I was going to be stupid, I would have been a much better student. You know, it took a long time for me to get there. Now let's fast forward up to 2005. My wife and I were in Uganda working on a documentary film for another nonprofit agency. And again, as Jim said, I saw a woman that absolutely startled me, because she did not have the treatments that I was privileged to have as an American child for polio. Her right foot was touching the back of her right shoulder. Think of that. This femur was twisted all the way around, and she was trying to hop around with a tree branch. My eyes were open. I saw people crawling in the dirt. We don't see that in this country. And so I had to do something. I saw 2 elements. One, we've got excess in this country, and they have a need over there, and all I'm doing is bringing our excess over to them and distributing it for free. That is Crutches for Africa, in a nutshell. And it's just that easy. But it also, we need money to grease those wheels, and you know what? That's where Rotary comes in. You may have not given a child a single drop of polio vaccine, but you pay your dues, and you give additional money and passion that you pour into it. Where else in the world will we ever find an organization where, just like that, I can plug into clubs around the world and they'll help me? Where does that happen? Right here, right now, in Rotary. That's what our foundation is about. And one thing I want to conclude with is, to all of you in the military, there was one thing that polio really, really burns me, that it took away from me, and that was the opportunity to serve in our armed forces. And to all of you, I salute you. Thank you for your hard work and a job well done. Let's finish polio. We're this close, people, this close. We can't be like the Broncos and not finish the game.
It's always great to follow David on the podium. I was looking a little bit at the Denver Club 31 history, and what did this club do in the space of about 6 months, from October of 1987 to April of 1988, in relation to polio?